Hello everyone. I announce that this is the last chapter of the entire series. It has been a whole year, and we have talked about much, but not all. The final chapter will take a look at all the problems of each political system, and how they can regenerate. This first episode will be dedicated to monarchy. Let's begin. Monarchy is characterized by concentration of all powers in a single person. This has an obvious implication. In order for monarchy to degenerate into autocracy, all that's needed is a single man becoming evil. As you may guess, this is an extremely common phenomenon, due to the easiness of its premise. This would be enough for someone to start hating monarchy as a system too risky to implement. However, we cannot just neglect the specular benefits of this very system. Just as it is easy for monarchy to degenerate, it is just as easy to make it thrive, because all that's needed is a good and competent monarch. The reason why it's so easy for a monarchy to gain extreme benefits or extreme evil, is because the king has all the authority, everyone listens to his orders. The king, in the society, has unlimited power, and this means that whatever is the king's will shall be done. And, as we know, a human's will is not always good, but not always bad either. You see, in the last chapter we talked about how, if the political class is virtuous, then every system is good. But that's, of course, idealistic, and that's why this chapter is called Practical Politics. This is when and where we put in practice the 5 systems to make them most efficient. And in order to make monarchy efficient, we need regulation for the king. If the king is regulated, analyzed, and supervised, it is far less likely that he will be an evil king. Therefore, an elective monarchy, with some kind of council analyzing the king's work, should be the best choice. Furthermore, it is best to keep some kind of immortal commandments which not even the king could abrogate. Something eternal, and therefore obviously based on ethics and objective morality. Today, we solved monarchy. Next time, we will solve aristocracy. Until then, be well. Hello everyone. We have determined the problems of monarchy. We now have to address and solve the problems of aristocracy. The system where all the powers are in the hands of a single restricted group of individuals. Let's begin. The advantage of aristocracy, unlike monarchy, is that it can listen to many viewpoints before taking decision. Thus all the decisions are made with more consideration, and less bias. This obviously makes it more likely that the system will make good decisions. However, despite all of this, a couple tens of people are still too little to make the aristocracy safe from degeneration. It has happened many times in history that aristocracy degenerated in tyranny, even more times than expected. The question then is, how much better is aristocracy than monarchy? And how more risky is aristocracy than monarchy? After we've answered those, we'd have to compare the two, and if the risks outweigh the benefits, monarchy is better than aristocracy. The thing is, how risky an aristocracy is depends on what kind of people are likely to get into the aristocratic council. If the requirements to become an aristocrat are conformed to the typical attitudes of virtuous people, it's not likely for an evil person to get in power. But if the requirements are too loose, then many people can get into the council. If the council gets too many evil people in it, the decisions will either be conflictual or corrupted. A degeneration happens when most or all aristocrats are not virtuous. So the goal of the law must be to avoid evil people getting in power as much as possible. But how do we do that? It's not practical to make another council to control the aristocrats like we did with the king, because that council will become too big and need another even bigger council to control that one. What's better to do is define some good principles and requirements to get in the aristocracy. Regulated aristocracy is the best way to ensure it will not degenerate. Now that we've solved aristocracy, we need to solve the next system. Republic. We will do it next week. Until then, be well. Hello everyone. This time, we will have to examine the problems of the Republican system of government. And, as we know, there are many of them. Let's get started. I assume that the majority of the people viewing my videos are, just like me, from a republic. Thus, we are directly involved in the functioning of our own government system, and know much about their flaws, since we are directly in contact with it every day of our lives. I think we can all agree that the main problem of republics is regarding cooperation. As someone who lives in a parliamentary republic, the extreme instability of this system is visible. In Italy we have elections every 5 years, so in 70 years we should have changed at most 14 governments. Turns out, we've changed 63 fucking governments. Another of republic's problems is the slowness of the decision-making process. The fact that everything needs to get approval by every single member of the various organs, and that we all need to agree on something and check whether it goes in contrast with the Constitution or not, is something that slows down the process a lot. This slowness isn't as present in presidential republics as it is in parliamentary republics, because the parliament and the president work in parallel and rarely interact. But still in presidential republics the instability is there, because whenever a new social structure is implemented, people are going to change their minds about it, since they'd be convinced of something idealistic, and the disappointment will make them stop supporting their party. This is the reason why in the USA most of the times the elections go back and forth between a Republican victory and a Democrat victory. Same goes with Italian government change. Just, in the USA the people directly elect the president, so it's up to them to change him, and this can only be done once every election, while in Italy the parliament can dismiss the president and call for new elections right then and there. How do we solve this? First of all, the slowness of the decision-making is due to the plurality of the parliament's chambers. If there was only one chamber, the decisions would be taken much more quickly. The reason why we implemented more chambers is because one chamber is dedicated to represent the people, while the others are for minorities. But this is not necessary in a country without significant minorities, nor in one with them, because one chamber is enough to represent the whole population. Second, we need to make the parliament unable to demote the president and call for new elections except for very serious cases. It is also useful to make people understand that what someone promises is almost never what they achieve. And it will be good to make the president leave instruction on how he wants the next president to be elected. everything within certain limits of course. But in the end, the main focus is avoiding the political class exploit the people's choice to be fragmented and cooperate. And this is done by rewarding the party who wins the elections, and punishing the ones who lose, as well as shortening the term length to something such as a single year. This will make the parties in direct competition, ensuring they don't get together and share wealth, and it also is an incentive to make impressive works at the eyes of the citizens, since a single year is very little to impress them. This was all for Republic. Next time we will talk about the problems of a polyarchy. So see you all when it happens. Be well. Hello everyone. Here today we will talk about what kind of problems does polyarchy bring. Polyarchy, as in technocracy, so the rule of the skilled. Let's begin. The obvious advantage of polyarchy is clear, letting expert people have power over the field of which they're experts. As Plato says it, just like a ship shouldn't be run by a random guy, but by an expert, likewise society should be run by those who know best, instead of just anyone. This system would bring efficiency to the various branches of society, as them all would be administered with the finest accuracy possible. However, there are two big problems that polyarchy has to solve. First, how do we define who is an expert and who is not? What I mean is, at what point does a man become an expert? The point is that we know people can be more or less expert on a certain subject, but there is no clear point where someone passes from being good to being an expert, nor there is a point of experience that cannot be surpassed. So there is no maximum amount of information that can be handled. Second, assuming we do find a way to bring a chief expert to all branches of society, there is no way that they all can be coordinated and agree on other issues. The expert, or Minister, of Health may not agree on an issue with the Minister of Public Spaces or whatever. For example, the Minister of Health wants to ban smoking because it kills people. But in order to do that he would have to ask for permission to the Minister of Public Spaces, who doesn't know anything about medicine, and thus has no interest in doing anything about the issue. And we cannot give the Minister of Health more authority in this field, because banning people from doing something is not within what people would call medicine. So, how do we solve these two problems? There are many ways, but I have my solutions. To the first problem, the solution is pretty easy. It would require the creation of a measuring method of experience, and whoever has the highest level of experience is of course the most expert, and he would be in charge. This evaluation obviously would need to be made many times and repeatedly, in order to generate the most flawless possible result. To the second problem, I really cannot see a solution other than having someone in charge of coordination, not necessarily hierarchically superior, but still tasked with coordinating the work of all the other ministers. For this purpose, it would also be convenient, once again, to have an instruction manual, or an overarching law that cannot be abrogated and that everyone shall obey no matter what. This is it for today. The next episode will be interesting, because the topic is very actual: how to fix democracy. Until then, be well. Hello everyone. Today, we need to address what kind of problems does democracy bring. I sure hope this video doesn't get me arrested, because I absolutely do not intend to stop right here. No way, we've come so far, not for nothing. Therefore, let's begin. Democracy, ideally, is described as the system where the entirety of the population is part of the political ruling class. The idea behind this is creating the most fair and just society possible, where nobody is above someone else. But really, is this the case? Democracy as we intend it was born in Greece during the classical era, but the kind of democracy I'm talking about is what's normally called communism. The system theorized by Karl Marx in 1848 in which all hierarchies are absent. Not only there are no economic hierarchies, but no social and governmental hierarchies either. Such a system is, to make it simple, too idealistic to be practical. The entirety of this idea revolves around the expectation that everybody will be good enough to not conspire against each other. The common argument against this objection says that people who want to cooperate will almost always be the majority in the society, thus making it stable. But this has two major flaws. The first one is, democracy is based on the logical fallacy of argumentum ad populum. In other words, just because something is considered good by most or all people, it doesn't mean it actually is good. If you imagine a society where 90% of the people are child rapists, and 10% of the people are children, surely you would try to overthrow democracy there to avoid the children getting assaulted, wouldn't you? The second big problem is the false stability of the system. Imagine that this democratic system is achieved, surely there must be someone who opposes it, because not everyone is going to like it. But remember, the system is stateless and hierarchyless. So, there is no government, no police, nothing, just a single same-level social class, of which the dissidents will be part. In this kind of environment, I genuinely ask, what's stopping the dissidents from rising up and creating their own new non-democratic nation? Nothing. Democracy is thus based on the false thought that humanity is collectively infallible, and that a stateless society will remain stateless somehow. In the modern era, we tend to associate the word democracy to something good. Most politicians, to get elected, use the classical excuse of trying to defend democracy, but we all have to stop thinking democracy is a priori a good system. It is not. It is flawed just like the others. So now, how do we solve democracy? That's right, we create a separate class of citizens tasked with defending the nation from uprisings, so basically a military, and we create, you know it by now, an overarching law. Now that we've analyzed and solved all of the systems, we can now proceed to create the best system possible, the one without any flaw, and the utopia people will have to want to live in. We will see it next time. Until then, be well. Hello everyone. Here we are, finally. This is the last episode of my first series, the culmination of everything we have discussed up until now. And what best way to do that, other than to describe the absolute best system of governance, the most flawless nation there could ever be? With permission from all the knowledge we have gained so far, I suggest we begin. monarchy, aristocracy, republic, polyarchy, and democracy. All of these systems are flawed, all of these have strengths and weaknesses, and all of these systems have been tried, and have failed. But if you look closely enough, you will notice that all of them are complementary to each other. A monarchy lacks regulation, a democracy lacks a head. An aristocracy lacks experience, a polyarchy lacks unity. A republic has some of these aspects, but reduced to a minimum, and isn't efficient enough. So what to do here? Well, the best idea would be to look at the longest running nation in history, and analyze its form of government. What would that be? Running from 753 BC, all the way up to 1453 AD in an unbroken line of national succession. The Roman Empire. It changed a lot of times its form of government, first a monarchy, then a republic, then another monarchy, until it died. But there is a place in the middle, right here, where its golden age took place, and where its form of government was neither a monarchy nor a republic, but a mix between the two. A principate. In this state, the empire had an emperor, but his function was only to supervise the republican inner mechanism of the government. This is one step towards utopia. In utopia, such mix must happen, but with all of the systems. Utopia is run by the entirety of its people, so that most of them may profit. They make the decisions. Utopia has solid expert guides that shape the popular opinion, so that they may always make the best choice. Utopia has a complex organical structure representing the brain of the state, so that everything runs fast. Utopia has an overarching council of wise advisors, so that everyone is well aware of everything at all times. And Utopia has a single emperor supervising everyone, so that the entire system works as intended. Each of those levels has powers over each other, but precisely because of this, most importantly, Utopia has a single body of law, a single civil code that everyone ought to respect, and that nobody is allowed to change ever. This law is to be founded upon all the principles of truth that we have talked about for the past year. Metaphysics, physics, human metaphysics, human physics, ethics, practical ethics, politics, and practical politics, all converge in a single list of 10 glorious and eternal commandments, which are the following. Commandment number 1. Love. It is the highest categorical imperative of humanity. Loving everything, loving at all times, and putting love itself at the highest level of existence, is necessary to gain salvation. Commandment number 2. Love to love. You ought to love, yes, but not because it is told you, but because of its own sake. You do not love because of ulterior motives. Love itself is the point of loving. Commandment number 3. Rest. Humans are not slaves to themselves. Humans are obviously not made to do nothing, but working without breaks is detrimental. A ratio of 6 days of work to 1 day of rest is ideal. Love your well-being. Commandment number 4. Love your parents. It is unthinkable for a human to live without parental figures. Therefore, as long as you have yours, do not wish for them to go away, and love them as much as you can. Commandment number 5. Do not kill. In order to assure the cohesion of society as a whole, no act of discord must happen, and the highest act is murder. Love everyone to the point of not wishing for their deaths. Commandment number 6. Do not commit adultery. If you love someone as much as you can, to the point that you wish to get married with them, you ought not to betray the love that bounds you two together. Commandment number 7. Do not steal. It is a product of pride, which is a product of external hate, and if you love someone, therefore, you do not wish for them to lose their possessions while you gain them. Commandment number 8. Do not lie. Intrinsically, lying is deception, and stems from either hate or need. But if there is no discord, neither hate nor need are there, because there is only love. Commandment number 9. Do not wish for other people's stuff. This is a product of envy, which is a product of internal hate, and if you love someone you do not wish for you to be happy while them to be desperate. Commandment number 10. Do not wish to break the commandments. This commandment is just the second commandment, but extended to all of the law. Respect it out of your own love, not out of being told to. These 10 laws embody the entirety of our series, the final point of everything we have talked about so far. And despite being differentiated, they all share a single common denominator. Love everything. This commandment, so powerful, is the final direction everyone has to follow and was made to follow. Yet now, after all this time, we know that this is further reducible. Everything we have talked about, everything we needed to talk about, everything we do and have to do, is condensed into a single, simple, eternal, and archaic categorical imperative. So is this